Hello and welcome to the CM13 Taurus Cup Pocket Guide. This is meant to be a short guide to help folks who might need to do some emergency review, maybe if the CM announcement caught you off guard, or maybe you just want to make sure that you're on the right track as you hopefully start finishing up your aces for the upcoming CM. So the CM13 Taurus Cup will take place at the Japanese Derby. It is going to be a 2,400 meter track, which means that it'll be a pretty long track for a medium. It is a track that has all of these greens that you see on screen: spring runner, left-handed, sunny days, standard distance, firm conditions, and Tokyo racecourse. The major thing to know about this CM is that every single Uma should be using red shift. So every Uma should be using red Maruzensky as a parent and inheriting her unique onto them. This is because red shift has a very wide positional requirement, meaning that you can proc it from 1st through 5th place. It will proc just a few meters after the final spurt begins, making it a very free and universal excel that pretty much everyone is going to be trying to hit. Even backliners should be taking red shift because ideally your goal is to be in 5th place by the beginning of the final spurt. One of the ramifications of every single Uma having access to this point 2 acceleration is that top speed becomes a lot more important. Because of this, medium S is going to be very important. I would focus also on getting speed greens if at all possible. Using the Narita Top Road card for Firm Course Menace is going to be in your best interest because that can stack with the other 2 speed greens in order to get you quite a bit of late game speed. For fronts, you can run triple front, which helps to block off those red shift acceleration positions from the backliners. Runaway Suzuka is going to help other fronts to build a lead. For fronts especially, I would say that the greens are very, very important, as well as medium S. Because fronts have a lower speed coefficient in the final spurt than other strategies, it means that you are at a disadvantage going into the final spurt. So you want to be able to stack these greens, and you want to be able to take late race velocity if at all possible. So things like Barcarolle of Blessings is great to have as a grandparent and hope to inherit that during your run so that you can use it as late race velocity. I would say that pace chases are a little bit more team comp dependent just in how you decide to build them. If you don't have any other fronts or pace in your composition, then you can use angling and scheming and try for a lucky pace angle. Angling and scheming coupled with red shift and pace chaser's natural late race velocity and acceleration means that a lucky pace has a really good shot to win as long as they have the accelerations to back it up. However, if you are running other Umas in front or pace, then Nimble Navigator is also a good option that assumes that there will be Umas in front of or next to your pace chaser so that they can hit that additional acceleration. Pace chasers also want to be building up velocity skills so that they can be moving forward in the middle of the race and position themselves well for the final spurt. Pace chasers can take these speed greens and as well as a lot of other mid-race skills in order to try to push up and prevent late surgers and end closers from catching up to them. For late surgers, I do think that lates are very strong if they can hit 5th place for the moving past and beyond and red shift combo. Late surgers can stack mid-race skills and high wit and Uma Stan, or in Agnes Digital's case, she can use Super Stan in order to position themselves very aggressively in the mid-race going into the late race. Late surgers can also take the Nimble Navigator skill, assuming that there will be pace chasers ahead of them that they can use Nimble Navigator off of. Another alternative for late surgers is going the debuffer route, but because stats and skill requirements for the CM are pretty high, I think it's going to be difficult to make a debuffer Uma who can also win reliably. So if you're going to make a debuffer, I might recommend going all in on debuffs. For end closers do want to push up to the 5th or 6th position in order to proc moving past and beyond. So mid-race and wit is very important. You can also inherit Let's Pump Some Iron on end closers if you can inherit it from a grandparent. End closers should be running CB Wit for Daring Strike. It is the #1 card to borrow if you don't already have it. I would say that if you don't have CB Wit and you don't have Narita Top Road, you would prioritize borrowing CB Wit instead of the Narita Top Road just because Daring Strike is so strong in the early game. It really helps you to be able to position in order to hit that 5th and 6th place so you can hit your moving past and beyond acceleration and chain that into red shift so that you can overtake in the end of the race. End closers are going to be very strong this CM, and I do believe that they are able to win without quite as much stat investment as a lot of the other positions require. In terms of stats, again, I do want to say that medium S is very, very relevant to the point where I would consider dooring out of a run if I don't hit medium S in the first inspiration. So this is going to be kind of a rough CM in terms of stat requirements just because the stamina requirement is going to be pretty high, as well as wanting pretty much every single other stat. Having more guts for dueling is great, having more wit for pushing up is great, having more power for that endgame acceleration is great, and of course you really want to stack as much speed as possible. So with all that, I would just advise you to do your best and focus on survival first and foremost, and then trying to max your speed as your secondary priority. As your tertiary priorities, that wit and power is very nice, and then your final priority should be guts. Guts is still fairly important because dueling is going to be pretty strong in the CM due to the long final stretch. However, if you're overwhelmed by the stat requirements, then that would be my recommendation. Here are some examples of some Umas that have been built for this CM. As you can see, all of them do have medium S, as well as meeting that stamina requirement either through pure stats or through recoveries. Additionally, you can see that the Pace Chaser, Late Surger, and End Closer have all taken Redshift here, which just goes to prove that it is a must-have skill for every single Uma. The Pace Chaser is taking Angling and Scheming because it is aiming for a lucky pace angle, while the Late Surger and End Closer are both taking Moving Past and Beyond so they can try to push into 5th and 6th place and hit that double acceleration. And that's all for this pocket guide. I released a longer guide a few weeks ago that goes more in depth into the whys and explaining the ins and outs of this CM. It's linked here and in the description, so if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. Please feel free to ask me any questions in the comments, and I hope that you have a fun time building for this CM. Thank you so much, and I will see you later. Bye bye.